My name's Adela and I make minis. Back in April, I challenged myself to make
100 in 100 days.
I decided to ease myself into things this week with a nice, simple shape. I began by pinching out a super big sphere for the body. I'm hoping that it will end up a decent size once it's shrunk in the kiln. Usable, but still diddy. After I'd attached the foot and the neck, I then started giving the joins a bit of a tidy, making sure that each component was nice and crisp and defined, rather than a blobby sphere joined onto a blobby cylinder. The biggest oopsie of today was not waiting for the clay to dry out enough before trimming, and I managed to rip the foot off. Luckily, I managed to stick it back on again too. Once the handles were on, I then added his little face. I've been trying to figure out why the finished faces on these never match up to my sketches, and I think I've narrowed it down to the nose. Probably if I left it unblended as a little triangle, it would look more like the drawing, but I'm actually really enjoying the little ruddy-cheeked dough ball vibe. I got back the first few weeks of finished minis today. Don't worry, I'll let you know when they're on the website. And one of the things that really excited me was the amazing reactions the glaze had on textured surfaces. So today I thought I would make this little guy with lots and lots of facets and ridges. I'd originally intended for the facets or fluting on this guy to be quite uniform, but my loop tool was wider than I needed it to be. To combat this, I used it at an angle and dug into one side more than the other. After a few passes in the same spot, I ended up with a really cool tiered effect that gave the piece some extra depth. I finished this one off with some super chunky handles, which ended up creating a really lovely juxtaposition to the body. Trust me, if you're not a fan of this one now, you definitely will be once it's glazed. I based today's mini on another little sketch, just a simple oval vase. As always, I pinched out the two halves of my body, joined them together, cut out an opening, and pinched out a little lip. It was super hot today, so the clay ended up cracking quite badly at this stage. It's not a problem though, as you can easily patch everything up with some extra clay. I then added some tiny handles and finished everything off with some white slip. My plan is to add the little waves with a black underglaze pencil once the piece has been bisque fired, but for now, he's just a simple little vase, and that's okay too. I wanted to carry on with the silhouette I was working with yesterday, and after some sketching, I decided on this design. A simple oval with some fluting. Because it's so similar, the process was about the same. Today, I had the added step, however, of needing to patch up the bottom because I'd pinched it out a little too thin. Sometimes when the clay is on the softer side, it can be easy to pinch the walls much thinner, as your fingers are used to having more resistance from the clay. It's all part of the process though, and it's nice that the material can keep you on your toes. I also had to patch up the lip again, thanks to the hot weather. Once everything else was done, I got to work carving out some deep grooves all around the shape, giving the glaze lots of opportunities to create some funky variation. I can't wait. I decided to go with the flow today and make whatever came to mind. Unfortunately, the flow carried me away a bit too far because I forgot to press record until I was almost done. To be honest, I'm kind of impressed I managed to get this far without making such a big mistake. Oh well. Once I'd got my handles on, I then had to decide which kind of expression this little vase was going to have. I usually get a pretty good idea whilst I'm making, but this one stumped me a little bit. So I got my phone out, took a quick picture, and sketched out a few possibilities. In the end, I went for this slightly frowny little face. I always hesitate a little bit to go for sad expressions because someone once told me that no one likes those. I guess they bum people out. But we all have to be bummed out sometimes, even vases. I was going to finish this one off with a nice coat of slip, but I think I'm going to go for a coloured glaze instead. You're just going to have to wait a bit to see which one I go for. The last few days of the week can sometimes feel a bit tough, so I decided to keep things easy today. It took some work to shape today's piece into something even and pleasing, but that's actually a really fun job. You'll always have some extra clay after you've joined the two halves of the body, especially in situations like this where you've got big gaps to fill. And it's just really nice to see the piece go from something really scruffy and wonky to a lovely smooth shape. I added some slightly larger handles this time, and then moved on to adding the face. This guy looks like he's seen something he shouldn't, and now he's gonna tell everyone about it. I love him, even if he is a gossip. I'd had an idea for a peeling vase a while back, and today felt like the right time to try it out. I'm not really sure what inspired this one, but I think I like the idea of a vase emerging from something else. I wasn't too precious with the body today because I knew it was going to get covered up. You do, however, have to be mindful of the overall shape because any clay that you layer on will only amplify the silhouette. As I started adding on the petals, I began experimenting with the different ways I could make them, rolling them out, using a wet paintbrush, coaxing them out with my fingers. As I added more and more, the neck started to look out of place and a bit too long. So I trimmed it down and added a frill to mimic the petals and make everything look a bit more cohesive. In the end, I was left with a bit of an uneven gap. Too big for one petal, not big enough for two. But it was the perfect size for a handle. I considered adding a second one, but oddly it felt more balanced with just the one. All in all, this was a great way to end the week. I'm a big fan of this one and can't wait to explore this idea even more. And that was week 10. A super fun one actually. Thank you very much for all of your support and lovely comments. They really do mean a lot to me. I've only got 30 minis left, so make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on those. See you next week.